with their own ideas of what the Bill of Rights literally means to them. So we had quite a few wonderful winners this year. We had 6th grade, Liana Atlas was first place, and Aubrey Rogers was our 6th place winner. Our 7th grade was Jocelyn Dockery and Kaylee Lesbrin, and Easton Nicholson was 3rd. And our 8th grade winners were London Manier, Joey Barda, and Cyrus Kramer was our 3rd place winner. And so we have 3 of our winners here today that would like to share their essays with you. So I think we are going to start with Joey Barda. So can you tell one more time what our prompt was? What the Bill of Rights means to me.
Okay, right.
What does the Bill of Rights mean to me? As an American citizen, I think the Bill of Rights is extremely important. I consider all 27 amendments important, but I'm going to focus on the 3 amendments that I feel are the most important. The amount of freedom we have as American citizens compared to other countries is something we need to acknowledge. We are extremely lucky, and people don't even take into consideration how much freedom we have. Congress not being able to stop citizens from having and carrying weapons is very important to me. As citizens, we need protection. We may need protection for our homes, stores, and even ourselves. Anything can happen in this world, from a robbery to an animal attack. The Founding Fathers thought it was necessary to have the means to protect themselves from our own government. Weapons are not only used for protection, they can be used for fun. For example, my family hunts and shoots guns at targets for fun. Congress cannot search our body, house, or papers and things unless proof of a good reason. Amendment 4 protects citizens from unreasonable searches by the government. If the search is unreasonable, then there would be no point in searching the person. Therefore, not only did the Congress waste their time, they wasted the citizens' time as well. Also, privacy is an extremely big factor. If we have private things we don't want people to go through, then we have a right to say no. I know I have a lot of things I don't want people to go through. Most importantly, it gives citizens protection against something as powerful as the government. For a country to be truly free, citizens must be allowed the freedom of speech, and that's what the First Amendment protects. The First Amendment gives citizens the right to criticize government policies. This gives us the right to our own personal opinion. As citizens, we should have a right to our opinions, no matter if we agree or disagree with the Congress. Another big freedom we have is religious freedom. We have freedom to choose whatever religion we want to follow and are not forced to undergo any religion we don't want to. This amendment is extremely important because in many cases, this freedom is a luxury that does not exist outside of America. The Bill of Rights is extremely important because it spells out Americans' rights in relation to their government. As citizens, we take the Bill of Rights and the freedom we have for granted. We have lots of freedom other countries who are not as fortunate as us don't have. Most young kids and sometimes even adults don't acknowledge how lucky we are.
Next we have Jocelyn Dockery. She is our 7th grade winner.
The Bill of Rights was made to protect the American citizens in 1789. At first, the Bill of Rights didn't apply to others. White men had these rights while others didn't. Consent was a government. This then led up to the Civil War and the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. America wouldn't be the way it is without the Bill of Rights to protect it. The Bill of Rights means that American citizens, including myself, are protected by our government. So we know we have the right to trial and to fight for ourselves. The 9th Amendment lets the people know that the Constitution makes specific rights, while the states can't decide laws just for them. In the states, we go through the fine lines of what laws are best for the state. For example, one state might have people get gun permits to carry a gun, while others might not have a law like that. This amendment is important to me because without having rights for states, some states might be scary and dangerous to live in, because some states have higher crime rates than others. If the president were to put charge, all of the states would be the same way. I wouldn't have the home I live in today if the government took the state's right to make laws. The 10th Amendment is also very important because it states the distribution of power. This amendment tells how the power is distributed evenly throughout the country, and that the states are part of the bigger picture. The amendment is why any American citizen can be part of the government. To me, it means that I get to be part of my country, so I can help decide what happens here. It means that the president can't decide our fate, and that the whole Congress is a part of it. We get to vote on lots of issues, so the Congress can't just decide what happens. To me, our country wouldn't all be the same way without this amendment. The Second Amendment states that we can carry weapons so we can defend ourselves. This amendment lets us, depending on the state, decide whether or not we have to have a permit to carry a weapon to make us feel safe or so that we can defend ourselves. The Second Amendment states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So we will not get in trouble if we carry or have firearms. For me, I feel better because I can protect myself from the chaos of the world. My family and I can protect our belongings with this amendment. In other words, the government cannot stop us from protecting ourselves from harm. Without the Bill of Rights, America's citizens wouldn't be protected the way they are. The Bill of Rights made America, America. Without it, we would be just like the UK or England. I feel that the Bill of Rights, of which James Madison wrote, protects America from laws like the UK has. James Madison is also named the father of the Constitution, the person who wrote the Constitution. With the Bill of Rights, America is a free country and makes its own path.
And our sixth grade first place winner is Liana Avalos.
As Americans, we are very lucky to have the Bill of Rights because we get the freedoms of speech, religion, press, and much more. The Bill of Rights is so important because it gives many Americans freedoms and rights people in other countries don't get. First, I'll be talking about freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. Freedom of speech is very important because it gives someone with an opinion the right to say or express it. My thoughts of freedom of religion is that we should be grateful for it because if we were born in a different country like Pakistan, we would not have the right to practice the religion we choose. Freedom of the press is very important because it allows people with something to say or write to tell it to the world. This affects society because without it, people could be paid to tell lies or they themselves could tell lies for their own benefit. Second, the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment means having the right to own self-protection. I believe everybody should be able to protect themselves and their family. This is important when it comes to America's enemies as well as protection from our own government if necessary. Lastly is protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment is important for personal privacy because it helps protect people and their property from unreasonable and unwanted searches. It ensures there is a signed warrant or a probable cause before being searched. This helps protect people against possible self-incrimination. In conclusion, the Bill of Rights is so significant in my life because it allows and protects our freedoms. Thank you for taking time to listen to what the Bill of Rights needs to be.
We do a picture.
Yeah, they definitely want a picture.
How do you want to do it?
Josh and Dean can.
Where we go? Yeah, sorry, Josh.
You want the corner or there? Or the front? We go over there and then Josh is in it. Oh, let's get Josh in it.
Who's Josh at?
Josh will be there.
It just says,
He doesn't want to be in it.
doesn't want to be in it?
You're gonna be in the background, Josh.
He's not in.
Are we going over here?
Oh, there he is.
There it is.
Where's Kiddo's at?
Come on, kneel down.
I'm fine with that, yeah. All right.
Okay, so you get a squeeze in, kids.
Have to get it closer.
Fairly thin. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jody,
Yes.
Chair Hendricks, I just put on your book the list for your patrons that signed up. Or, excuse me. Huddleston, you mean?
Right here, Karina. Karina,
Oh,
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Got it. I always want to say.
Okay. So we'll go down, monthly building reports, Department Saber in Elementary School, Mr. Pooch.
So my colleagues have been mocking me mercilessly for 2 months for my last board report. Look, they're timing me.
Only some, not
It
all.
was very appreciated.
So I'm just gonna talk as long as I want, because I don't care.
Well, it was very appreciated.
Thank you. See, some people liked it. We had our fire drill. It was exciting. We had like no adults that knew what they were doing there, and the kids were great. And we did it on purpose. We did it during recess. We did it when a bunch of people were absent. And so the sub plans were really good. People knew what they were doing. And so I felt really good because even with all of the subs and the kids were at recess and third grade was absent, we still did it in about 5 minutes from pull to reentry. So I was really impressed with the kids and with the adults and the plans that the teachers left for the subs. Our Cultivating Readers Sustainability visit was on April 2nd, which is a real lift for the teachers because that's the day we came back, second day after we came back from spring break. Usually we have Lexi do some demonstration lessons, and this time we had her observe and tell us what she saw based on the science of reading. And I was really excited in some of the stuff that she saw our teachers doing. There was a lot of explicit teaching, a lot of routines. We've almost eliminated round robin reading, which is huge. Lots of advanced stuff going on in the younger grades. So I was really proud of the kids and the teachers for sure, because it's a big lift to change things into the science of reading and really move the kids along. It's very regimented. PTO is really active, having popcorn on Fridays. This Friday is Spring Bingo, the Elks Lodge. So Spring Bingo, if anyone's interested, it should be a good time, 5:30. And I didn't put this on here because I didn't know about it at the time, but Friday the 19th is Donuts with Adults. And that is at 7:30 at the Hayburn Cafeteria. It'll be a great thing if you're able to come because some kiddos don't have adults to come with them to have their donut. And we provide a donut for the adults, PTO does, and the kids have donuts for breakfast. So if you want to come and have a donut with a kid, that would be awesome. They really enjoy just having people there. Our student recognition for March was the trait of responsibility, and we have our honor roll following that. Was really proud of the number of kids with A's and B's. A couple of other highlights that were exciting. We had the Idaho Theater for Youth come the day before spring break, and they presented The Legend of Finn McCoy, and they had the most amazing puppets. It was really cool. And Jenny Short brought her preschoolers, and I thought, oh, live theater. Okay. They were riveted or asleep. But they were great. They lasted the whole time. It was amazing. The kids had a great time. They were fascinated, asked really good questions. I was really proud of them. A couple other things going on. I don't know if you've noticed the construction in front of Hayburn. The light. Super, super awesome timing because ISACs are, tomorrow and it's loud. And the parents and the teachers and the kids have been doing a really great job trying to help us as we navigate the whole new drop-off pick-up strategy. Dr. Wrench and Janie and I kind of walked the area and tried to figure out what was best, and we've been tweaking it as we went along. This morning, the administrators came and helped since it was the first day of construction. And honestly, the first time I've ever seen somebody walk out in the middle of the street and change the traffic flow. Like the construction lady that was putting out cones, she was blocking off that pickup lane right by Hayburn, and she just walked out in front of traffic, put down her cone, pointed. All the cars just changed. Amazing. But with the construction, not only we changed drop off and pick up, we really had to condense our ISAT schedule. So we're starting tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. So see how that goes, kind of condensing it. Last year, we waited toward the end of the testing window to try to like cram in as much instruction as possible. And we realized that the kids didn't care and were done. Like their brains had turned off. We waited too long. So this year we're gonna try a little earlier, both for that reason and because construction is supposed to start by the pool and move closer and closer to Hayburn. Well, they were across the street today, so I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna try to keep it as quiet as possible for the kids to do a good job. And finally, there's some data for you to look at. A couple things to note that I just think are cool. Look at the beginning of the year. Our total number of kiddos proficient in reading was 45%. We're up to 53%. In math, we started out at 38%, and we're up to 57% in March. But I really want you to look at the very last page at the fluency intervention numbers. Fluency is a part of reading where you're able to read without stopping to sound things out. You can read fluently, right? So you're not decoding every word. You're able to see the word, say the word, turn it into sentences. The other part would be comprehension, right? And we measure those two things separately. We ran into a problem where we were really struggling with fluency, so we focused on it. And we started the year with 185 students in intervention. That's 185 students that are below grade level and needing specific intervention. We have moved 140 of those kids out of intervention over the course of the year so far. We're down to 43 in March. So I am super proud of the teachers and the kids because that is an incredible number of kids to move. So we're fluent. End of report. Stop the timer. Any questions I can answer?
Good, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. St. Mary's Middle School, Miss Carson.
The donuts, how do you coin it? Donuts with adults?
Donuts with adults.
I've attended and it is a ton of fun. Highly recommend it. Okay, at St. Mary's Middle School, our fire drill, you'll see some variance in our fire drill times. And I really want to correlate it in my mind with staff absence. When we have our fire drills and we go back in to kind of regroup and reflect, we're finding that it's directly tied to if the staff was present in the room or if there was a sub present. So always good to find some holes in our procedures so that we can improve. So that's one of our highest times. But again, we're really critical at what happened and how can we improve. Some data review, our STAR data, the 6th grade saw an increase in math scores from our winter benchmark to our March data. 18% more students were at or above grade level. 7th grade is on fire, like not dumpster fire, but good fire. The 7th grade saw an increase in math scores from our winter benchmark. 22% more scored at or above grade level. And additionally, the ELA scores increased as well, 4%. Some grades concerns, my team and I are looking at the amount of D and Fs assigned for quarter 3. So we looked at semester 2 and we did see an increase, which was concerning, from 33% to 40% of the grades assigned were Ds and Fs. So again, that concern really made us reflect what's going on, what's the outlier, what's the variable, and how can we improve. So we spent a lot of our collaboration time looking at our RTI model and being super purposeful in how can we meet these extreme needs and how can we be more advantageous with our time. Okay, student recognition.
Principal Carson, will you just spell out what RTI is?
Sure, response to intervention, that's our MTSS, that's our response to kids that need more support, a tiered system. Yeah, you don't want any more. Our Student of the Month platform recognized students last month. This was in your board report last month, but trustworthiness is just such an adult type trait, something we're trying to cultivate more than others. So I wanted to just reiterate, we awarded 4 awards last month for trustworthiness: Carter Harvey, Keely Herzog, Brooklyn Chuckmeyer, and Downey Johnson. We celebrated with a luncheon at the Kiwanis at the fire station. The track season has begun. 20 tracksters from the middle school came out to compete, and our first track meet is on Wednesday, so we're very excited about that. Mr. Buckler, you're going to hear a lot about him in just a moment because he's the teacher pet this month. He's just been so busy with different events for our kids. First of all, he started with Pi Day on the 14th. He set up a ton of different activities in the gym for students to explore the idea of Pi. Again, Mr. Buckler, along with the entire St. Mary's Middle School staff, facilitated our annual Math STEM Night. Some representatives from U of I came, and the parents and students were able to see a live robotics demonstration, which was neat. And then additionally, the 7th and 8th graders presented their probability project to their parents. So it was a great turnout. We hosted parent-teacher conferences Thursday and Friday, had a great turnout. So third quarter conferences are historically reserved for kids with a grade concern. So back to those percentages that we saw increase, 40% of our grades. We got to meet with parents and just try to diagnose what's going on. How can we help as we wrap up this semester? So it was a great time. Additionally, myself and Ms. Rose attended a series of job fairs in the region, promoting our district and looking to fill some anticipated holes for next fall. That was a great time. Our collaboration time, you've already heard, has been spent looking at our RTI practices. What's the best practices? How can we improve? How can we help support student need? And then additionally, we had a whole staff diabetes training. Some of our demographic suffers from conditions that we needed some extra support on. Some of us were uncomfortable with that glucagon shot. Is anybody familiar? The glucagon? Yeah, I was not. And I was not relying on YouTube. So we called Lacey in and she gave a great demonstration to our whole staff. Just a few last points. Mr. Greg Whidden, that's a name you recognize. We hired him as our band instructor. He came in and we're now offering 3 sections of music to band, and then 8th period, he's teaching kind of a music appreciation where the kids are exploring choir and composership, and it just brings me so much joy to walk down the hallway and hear kids singing and playing, and it's just been a great investment of our funds. I'm really excited to see what he does in the future. Finally, Mr. Buckler and Mrs. Bales are escorting 4 of our students, our chief science officers, to Napa later this week for their annual conference, and they'll have a chance to collaborate with other CSO teams, both at the state and national level. So we're looking forward to hearing more from that. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
So for Upriver School, we're gonna hear from Karina Stoles and Stacy Maddox. They went to a little conference on RTI or reteach that you just heard Principal Carson talk about. So they're gonna share out some highlights from their learning.
Okay.
Well, we went to over spring break. We flew to Minnesota into 10 inches of snow and a winter storm. That was exciting. And we, our RTI is not response to intervention. RTI that we went to is an RTI workshop that goes along with our PLC, which is a professional learning community. And the RTI is responsible teachers intervening, because all kids must mean all. And so we decided to conquer and divide. I took the leadership side and Stacy took the teacher side.
So one thing, and focusing on the teacher side, is we really wanted to know where we were going to go to next after the teachers got to go to the PLC. And I had 3 big takeaways. The first one is just because the student is not able to read at grade level doesn't mean they can't think at grade level. That means no bumping back students. They learn the core standards with everyone else. All students receive Tier 1 instruction. Number 2, when we create a focus on our whole teaching team, we make a promise to the students that they are going to know that standard or be really, really close to it. And 3, we learn as a vertical team, which means we need to review our teaching strategies and monitor if our students get it, and are we ready to move forward through analyzing students' work to plan for 1 and 2 tier responses.
So on the leadership side, again, we are a vertical team. We don't have 1 or 2 kindergarten teachers or first grade teachers. We are what we are. We have a kindergarten, a first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. So we have to rely on each other to understand those standards and what comes first and what comes next. So our teams overlap. We have a leadership team that's our PLC team, and now we have our teacher team that is the responsible teachers intervening into understanding standards and concentrating on those standards. We have to ensure that all means all, that every student counts for what they do in our classrooms. We have to make sure that every student has essential grade level curriculum at their disposal, no matter what level they're at. And that we have essential learning. Our takeaways from this conference was essential learning, the promise of purpose and practice for every single student. The academics and the behaviors are taught across all grade levels. And the best intervention that we can have is prevention. That was our takeaways. Do you have any questions about our conference?
Awesome.
It was
Sounds good.
really good.
Awesome.
Really good. Recommend it to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for going. All right, special education, Ms. Miller.
Well, I typically give you more updates of what's happening in special education, but today I'm going to give you some highlights. As you know, and I often say, a lot of what happens in special education I don't share just because of confidentiality. So with a lot of new board members and probably Jody really being the only one that's left who's heard me talk about how you qualify for special education, I thought I'd loop back and just inform you. So I think you've got this report in front of you, which is probably going to be helpful to take out as I'm going through it because it's a little intensive. So just currently, just overall, we have 147 students with special needs receiving services within our district. The student is assessed in all areas related to the suspected disability, which ties in really nicely with what the upper staff was just talking about because RTI feeds into that process. So through the RTI process, often kids are identified as needing some extra services and then referred to special education or our special education evaluation team. So with that suspected disability, it could be functional, developmental, or academic needs. And it's always to look at how they progress in the general education setting. So in order to qualify, they need to meet 3 prongs. The first prong is that they have to have a disability. In Idaho, there are 14 disability categories, and you can see those listed. Just because you guys don't have that in front of you, I'm going to go ahead and read them off. Autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability, deaf and blindness, deaf or hard of hearing, developmental delay, emotional disturbance, other health impairment, that would be something like ADD or ADHD, specific learning disability, multiple disabilities. If a student can qualify with several of these categories, you could qualify them under multiple disabilities. Orthopedic impairments, speech and language impairment, language or speech and language impairment, speech, a traumatic brain injury, or visual impairments like blindness. So that's prong 1. So you have to demonstrate that you have a disability. Prong 2 is that that disability has to have an adverse impact on your education. And prong 3 is that there has to be a need for specially designed instruction. And oftentimes we'll see that maybe students meet 2 of those prongs, but not the 3rd. So all 3 need to be met in order to qualify. If a student qualifies, we, by law, are required to provide them a free, appropriate public education. So in some of your meetings, you might hear FAPE, and that's what FAPE is, a free, appropriate public education, in their LRE, which is their least restrictive environment. And that's something that teams don't take lightly. Anytime we meet, it's always a team decision. It's not my decision. It's not the school psychologist's decision. It's a required group of team members who determine, including parents, who determine if the student qualifies and all of the components of the IEP process. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act states that to the maximum extent appropriate, all students with disabilities are to be educated with age-appropriate peers who are non-disabled, that's LRE, and it is the district's responsibility to have an array of services and a continuum of educational settings available to meet those students' LRE. Any questions on that?
Busy.
Thought this would be good to have, so you can refer back to it. And then just as far as professional development, because of spring break, our special education staff did not meet this month. We just did an email meeting. But I am a member of the Directors Advisory Committee that supports Idaho State Director of Special Education. And so I was able to travel to Boise in March to discuss some changes. OSEP came in and evaluated the state. For those of you who don't know, OSEP is the U.S. Department of Special Education. And they found things that they felt the state of Idaho needed to change. So there are about 10 of us on the Directors Advisory Council. And so we met to talk about mainly our GSFR process, which is our file review process, as well as how kids qualify under specific learning disability. They're having some changes made in that. that will have to go through the legislature, so it probably won't be until about 2025 when that takes place, but it is a process. So, yeah, fun times and special ed.
Yeah, good thing you understand it.
Any questions?
Thank you.
This is our-
Transportation.
You have the report in your board book along with the other departments. So unless you have any specific questions, that's our report.
All right.
Yeah, excuse me.
All right, we got open forum here. I've got, Mr. DeGravio, you put agenda H. So that was the patrons. So which,
First Amendment.
First Amendment, okay. All right, so Mr. Crandall's got the policy process.
Mr. Crandall has the first amendment.
I have,
Not on this one.
I signed in to speak on the
Got it.
policy.
Yes.
So, and then Ms. Darnold's got O and H. O is on your policy process, so
Yeah, look for it.
what I would like,
Nothing in there. We're just gonna discuss.
what I'd like to do is just have one person speak on the policies, means we got 3 different people. Would that, could you, Mr. Crandall and, Mr. Imel and Ms. Darnold get together and I'm assuming it's probably pretty close to the same thing on the policy update, the policies.
I don't think it is.
It's, mine's different, but it is tied to that. I had Z on mine too, which was the procurement policy.
Okay.
Which ties into the, policy.
All right, well,
Mine's on the process, the new process that you're
and
presenting specifically on the methods of the process.
okay, well, I guess we'll just go through them. So Mr. Crandall, go ahead.
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
All right. Good evening. I wanted to briefly touch on the policy updates, and this purchasing, update. So I like on the purchasing update, I like the, red and blue with the strikeouts. It's very nice. So I don't know if that was Tanner or Ms. French, but thank you very much. It's very, very easy to read. So, I guess on the bidding and the contracts, I have some questions on why we're crossing this whole section out on the red part.
What are we referring to here?
This would be the policy 803.01.
Okay. One more minute. Yeah,
It's the
so you're-
same.
I was like,
So under P,
Under P.
E. I was
very
like, oh,
last policy.
And then again,
all right, so I just want to make sure we're following the same thing.
Perfect. So it looks like we're stripping out a couple of different, like more than a couple, with a little bit of background in government purchasing. My first question is, how is it legal not to have a bidding process? Because I think that's kind of the core of government contracts, is that you have a bid, it's published, typically in the newspaper, different venues like that, to give everybody a fair opportunity to bid, also let the public know what's going on as well. And it looks like the formal bid's removed, the public notice is removed. The other key tenet of government contracts is typically they're awarded to a low bid. I remember last year when we went through the fuel contract, that was the big thing. It was a cent different, right, for one of them. So it looks like we're removing that. And then it removes the basic requirement for bidders to be qualified, which was kind of scary. And then it strips out consideration factors such as experience, ability, and the integrity of the builders doing the work. And then the last thing it looks like it strips out is the part where it requires the superintendent to align the bid and contracts with state and federal purchasing requirements. So removing the federal part, I totally agree with. I think that would be a good thing if we got the feds out of our purchasing agreements, because constitutionally, they don't have any power. They shouldn't be really in education. Their powers are enumerated, and education and purchasing is not really one of them at our level. So I fully support striking out that part with the federal procurement requirements, but the rest of it, I don't see how we have a bid policy at that point. It's just kind of like a blank check to pick whoever it seems like would. And I was looking up Idaho code a little bit. Idaho code has a whole manual on how bidding is supposed to be done, and I don't see how this is compliant with that. Because the legislative intent of that was to make it public, make it known, the advertisements. I haven't had time to weed through it. Which leads me to my second point, but I was also wanting to speak on the policy deal. As far as the sort of the subcommittee that's being talked about, I think done well, it could be a benefit. But this is kind of the stuff that people are nervous about, is if it's in subcommittee, it gets brought up, it doesn't get read a couple times, stuff's just gonna get pushed through. This is the first time I think that this has been brought, because I don't remember seeing it last month's meeting. So I don't know, is this the first reading of this, or? This is the first I've seen it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the concern, is we just want to make sure with whatever subcommittee that's getting done, that the public has opportunity to see it, especially, stuff like this where we're spending taxpayer money. We want the taxpayers and obviously the parents and the teachers to get opportunity to see what's being done.
Absolutely.
That's my concerns on that. Thank you. And I defer my time.
All right, Mr. Alan Imel.
Six minutes and 3 seconds.
All right. We'll see if I can get through this. I feel like I'm in that group that's not very fluent in pronunciations. I would like to address the policy that was brought to my attention in regards to the Policy Advisory Committee. The policy that was brought to my attention is called Organization and Dissolution of Citizen Advisory Committees. Its policy number is 1002.01. In this policy, it says St. Mary's School District number 41 Board of Trustees shall enlist citizen advisory committees to assist them when appropriate, making certain that the following 3 principles are followed. The proposed committee would violate this policy's very first stipulation, which reads, the group would be representative of the community. And why does the proposed committee violate this policy? Because 3 of the 6 members of this proposed committee are staff members, and 4 of the 4 parents, 1 of them is also a staff member. This is not representative of the community. To be in compliance with the policy, the board would need to include representatives from groups like veterans, seniors, churches, business owners, or the homeschool community, or stuff like that. I would also, that's all I had to say on that. I would also like to state for the record that I am opposed to the Idaho School Board Association as our legal advisors. They have proved themselves to be liberal bent organization. That's all I had. Thank you guys for what you do, and I defer my time.
Okay. Mr. DeGravio.
Hey guys, I'm gonna be quick. It's regarding the First Amendment. We all believe in the First Amendment. To be able to speak our mind and do what we want. Everybody can agree with that. Now, do you think if you speak your mind, regardless, at a meeting, at the newspaper, wherever, to somebody else, should it be held against you? I mean, if, to get on a committee or whatever, because somebody didn't agree with what you said. And I mean, you shouldn't be punished for saying what you think, or penalized by not being able to be having something to do with the school district, by helping out. I mean, all our teachers are wonderful. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we got the best. we got a great board now, and I just want to make sure that people are not getting penalized for speaking their mind. Just as, you know, it goes both ways. So that's all I have to say, and I defer my time.
Thank you. Mr. Arnold?
$13.06.
Thank you for allowing me time to speak tonight. I would like to discuss a couple of meetings that I recently had with Ms. Wrench and several issues that were discussed. In October, the previous board was reviewing the sex offender visitor policy. The policy was tabled because I found a typo and brought it to the board's attention. I was then able to bring concerns to Mrs. Wrench that I had about the policy being illegal. Ms. Wrench and I worked many hours and had quite a bit of back and forth. In November, the policy was adopted with the understanding that it wasn't completed, but that the district needed a legal and safe policy on the books. If you watch the recording of the November board meeting, at the 1 hour, 7 minute, 12-second time, Ms. Wrench is heard stating that there were a lot of revisions made to make the policy legal. Since the policy was tabled because of a typo and the majority of the public did not realize the policy was illegal, I spoke up to make sure that the public realized the district had been operating under an illegal and unsafe policy given to them by ISBA. I wanted transparency, and I felt that the public had a right to know since policies like this directly impact the children of this community. Since then, Ms. Wrench has stated the legality of the first policy is a matter of interpretation instead of maintaining that she understood the policy was illegal. When I initially researched this, I reached out to the Idaho State Patrol, and they said that it was an illegal policy. After the November board meeting, Ms. Wrench initiated the idea of having a policy committee to speed up the process of updating the district's many policies. She stood in the foyer of the district office, pointed to me, and told me she wanted me to be on the committee. Mind you, this is after I had already put in writings into the newspaper, spoke at the meeting about my opinions and concerns regarding the illegal sex offender policy, and posted these perspectives on social media. At the January board meeting, I spoke about my reasoning for not being in favor of Mrs. Wrench's contract being renewed. One of the reasons I stated was that she was integral in the decision-making of the curriculums that were to be brought forth to the math curriculum committee, and all selections she brought forth contained SEL and have also contained CRT. At the February 12th board meeting, Mrs. Wrench mentioned that she wanted interested parties to email her about joining the policy committee. On February 14th, I emailed her and asked if there was a form that needed filled out to join the policy committee. On February 18th, Mrs. Wrench emailed me back stating, "Thank you for reaching out and having interest. I will keep your name in mind. I can explain more about why you haven't been selected at this time, but I would prefer to explain in person." I have met with Ms. Wrench twice now to clarify why I would not be a good committee member. In our most recent meeting on March 8th, Ms. Wrench made it clear that she and the board felt that I did not need to say anything publicly during the process of fixing the illegal sex offender visitor policy. I was told by Mrs. Wrench that I have the right to voice concerns, and I quote, "Those traits make for a strong advocate. The board and I did not determine those traits as a good committee member." Later, she stated, "We decided you weren't going to make a good committee member right now, and it is because the comments in the patron comments section and the editorial did not make for a good committee member when we're looking for someone to be a team member." She then stated, "You have the right to speak out. Those traits make for a strong advocate, but the board and I did not see that as traits that make a strong committee member at this time. So, using my right to speak freely and my voice and to voice my concerns after the revision process has begun on a policy or outside of that committee setting doesn't make for a good team member." She told me that she and you on the board are looking for people who are going to be team players. I'm curious what the difference is. When I voice concerns or opinions, I am considered a good advocate for the community. But when I voice my concerns or opinions, I'm considered to not be a good fit and not a team player. Being told when and where I can voice concerns or opinions is an attack on my freedom of speech. Being told I am welcome to voice them, but if I do, I will be denied the right to participate in making policy that directly affects my kids and uses my tax money is a violation of my rights. I should not be required to surrender my freedom of speech to be considered a good fit, or a team player for one of the district's committees. even our middle schoolers that have left realize that. I'm coming to you not because I advocate for my being on the policy committee, but to ask the board, is this trajectory of discrimination and silencing those who would be transparent with the public going to be your legacy? My concern now is about how this entire situation is being handled, and that according to Ms. Wrench, you, as the board, approve of violating my First Amendment right to speak freely without retribution from the government. Ms. Wrench has stated that she and you on the board feel that I have undermined and negated the purpose and intent of the MAC and policy committees. She has stated the people on those committees and that you, the board, feel unsafe. After this statement, Ms. Wrench would not elaborate on it any further or help me to understand what her words meant. To me, that's a serious allegation, and it should be clearly explained. In closing, since Ms. Wrench has lumped all of you board members in with her statements, I am asking for Mrs. Wrench and all of you on the board to document these in a formal letter to me with specific examples of how my sharing concerns with the public makes me not a good fit for the policy committee. I would also like direct quotes and specific examples as to what I said or did that made you feel unsafe and why. If, however, you as board members or individual members don't agree with her statements, I would also ask to have that in writing as well, and that each board member signs it personally, stating their stance. I politely request that you have this to me in an email in 2 weeks. I'll send up a following email so that you have this request in writing, and I defer my time. Thank you.
Can I ask that you formally submit that so I can read?
Can you what?
Can I ask that I have that written out so I can formally?
The whole thing?
Or just whatever your request.
Yeah, I have a request that I'll send as an email.
It's fine. You can email it to me.
Okay.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next, Mr. Durham.
Just a quick question, did the gun bill pass the legislature?
I don't think so.
No, it was kicked down. It was changed to Bill 1418. So 415 didn't go any further because the NRA stepped against it because it had any step on our rights. So instead of moving forward with progress, they're against it because it had anything to do with any sort of, control, which I completely agree with in that manner. But still, that's where they stood. So because of that, and forgive me for answering this question correctly, but that's where they changed it to Bill 1418. 1418 changed to where they were trying to change some of the wording in policy. Once again, it was stepped against by the Senate because they felt like it was less strict, and because of that, it was capped down right then and there.
So it can't come up until next year.
That doesn't mean we can't discuss it in policy still, because it's still something we still can, but it won't come up till next year. They're talking about revising it in legislature. Yeah.
All right, moving on to patrons, Mr. Crandall, First Amendment.
Ready?
Ready, go.
Good evening, I'm back. Real quick on that last one, I'd ask that you guys table that until next month so we can review that on the purchasing.
You're talking about 803.101?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So tonight I wanted to talk about the First Amendment. I was pleasantly surprised by the presentation that you had. That was amazing. That gal that won the essay contest did a wonderful job of explaining the basics of the Bill of Rights. And that gives me a lot of hope. If the kids have an understanding of their rights from a young age, that's how we save this country. That's how we turn it around. Is understanding not only what rights we have, but where our rights come from. And that's kind of a compilation of understanding the Declaration of Independence, which kind of outlines that our rights come from God, governments are instituted among men to protect those rights. That's the first job of government. The primary job of government is to protect those rights. So having the kids understand that at a young age is very good. So tonight I wanted to talk about mainly freedom of speech, and it's outlined obviously in the First Amendment. And it's what sets America apart from the communist dictatorships like North Korea and China and all these other different regimes over the years that have censored the speech of the average person. And they've made it a privilege to speak rather than a right. America sets that heart differently. And the founders said that the freedom to speak comes from God. It doesn't come from the government. And so the government can't take it away. They can't censor it. They can't even regulate it. And that's the beauty of our rights coming from God. The Idaho Constitution says, grateful to Almighty God for our freedoms. And so even the Idaho Constitution goes one step further, and it acknowledges God as the giver of those freedoms. Among those is freedom of speech. In America today, the God-given right to freedom of speech is under attack more than ever. The communists in our own country are actively trying to silence Americans in an effort to destroy America from the inside out. Communism started as a whisper in places like Berkeley and Portland. It is now spreading like a cancer throughout the entire nation. Americans are now told that they must censor their speech to make others feel safe or promote inclusivity or a number of other lies. The Bill of Rights says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. Also included that is the right of the peaceful to assemble, peacefully assemble, and to petition the government for the redress of grievances. So it specifically lumps the freedom to speak and to address government, you guys, or commissioners, or sheriff, or whoever we elect, to give them a redress of grievances. George Washington said this about freedom of speech: for if men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences that can invite the consideration of mankind, reason is of no use to us. So if we can't speak freely on things, we might as well not even do it. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. And yes, sheep are really dumb. That's why you need a dog to run them around. And so we don't want to be sheep, right? And we don't want our kids to be sheep. So that was from George Washington in an address to the officers of the Army, March 15th, 1783. We see this slaughtered sheep concept playing out time and time again throughout history, especially in communist regimes. Death and destruction flow out of Marxism, communism, and fascistic regimes. First, the bourgeoisie ruling class takes away the freedom and silences any dissent from the proletariat, peasant class, the farmers, the people that actually do the work. And then they seize the critical leadership positions from education to government, and then they seize your property, and they throw you in the gulag. So, but it starts with speech, right? Because people will speak out. You see that in the Netherlands right now. You see that in Canada. You see that in France. People are speaking out. And the government's trying to squash it, right? And that's what makes America so unique, is that we have that freedom of speech, where the government can't retaliate. Is that my time?
Time's up.
All right. Very good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Shyness.
Okay. Tonight I'm addressing the suggested new policy review process. In current policy 203.01, it states the board considers policy development its chief function. It appears the board is handing this responsibility off to a subcommittee that, to my knowledge, is not even going to include a board member, will not have posted meeting times, and will not be inviting community input. Policy 203.01 also states the board welcomes suggestions for ongoing policy development. So I met with Teresa Wrench last week to discuss concerns with the proposed changes. My main concerns were, and still are, related to transparency and limiting access to parents and community members with the new policy review process. How are parents and community members going to have access to the proposed policy changes? Tonight, we are here trying to push through a policy 803.01 with only one reading. It is imperative proposed policy changes are available to the public well before the first reading, if this is going to become a new board process. Ms. Wrench suggested that they could possibly post them with the board meeting agenda, but that gives very little opportunity for community members to research prior to the meeting and will not allow the public opportunity to get on the agenda for these items as it will already be past the deadline. She referenced Simply as a resource, possibly starting in July, so I request at a minimum that no changes be made to the current process of 3 readings before the board until Simply is available, or the board has developed some way to have the proposed policy changes available to the public at least 2 weeks before the first reading. My next concern is what the meeting process will look like for the Policy Advisory Committee. Board Policy 1002.01 states advisory committees for the board will be representative of the community. Currently, the proposed committee is comprised of 3 school employees, one of which is being counted as a parent, and 3 parents. This is not representative of our community. There should be community members on this committee as well as parents and staff. And if it is representative of the community, the minority will be district employees. Taxpayers in this community have a vested interest in the actions of this school district and this board. Advisory committee meetings need to follow public meeting law, need to be noticed to the public appropriately, and need to be open to community members and parents. If policy development is a chief function of the board, and the board is trying to be transparent, as you've stated, then policy advisory committee should be transparent and open to the public. Finally, according to Ms. Wrench, the legal consultant for the policy review will be the ISBA. As evidenced in the library and sex offender policies, the ISBA is pushing an agenda we do not want for this community. I once again appeal to this board to find alternative legal representation. The very first policy that needs to be reviewed by this board is policy 205.02, which requires trustees to be active members of the ISBA and dues paid by this district, i.e. the taxpayers of this community. I do not support $1 more of my tax dollars going to the ISBA, and I absolutely do not support the ISBA having any role in advising this district on policy making related to our schools or our children. This board needs to stop sitting idly by and allowing the continued involvement of the ISBA. It's time for this board to take action and make a change. I'm going to leave you with a few quotes from Reversing America Decline. Given the comfortable fit between the guidance given board members and the education community's view of critical schooling issues, it's little wonder school boards are ineffective. In theory, school boards are expected to act as an advocate to the public interest in quality schooling. Despite their efforts, they are regularly immersed in education issues from a provider standpoint. They are often members of organizations like the ISBA that aggressively seek to advance their interests. The result is regulatory capture on steroids. Training given to new school board members encourages them to defer to the education community views. Board members are decent and public-spirited individuals who are elected to advance the public's aims and priorities, but who are typically able to do little more than accept the present levels of outcomes. Instead of representing the public's goals, they more often find themselves cheerleading for the district leadership's programs and priorities, and for organizations like the ISBA. The votes in the last election spoke loud and clear. This community wants more from this board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to presentation agenda, superintendent's report.
Yes.
Let me give a hard copy. Josh, do you have hard copy? Virtually?
Yep, I do.
Did you open the 6th grade or being backwards? And then the rest, you guys have hard copy. So just some fun pictures of our students who Friday, one of their culminating activities for the seniors was their senior project and their presentation. I'm going to come back and kind of highlight them some more in a little bit. Winston, the bull, was an artifact for one of the senior projects. Who wants to be a farmer? Skills USA competition it's a national competition for our career tech students. We had, the competition, I'll say, is really well renowned. Like, students and instructors spend their whole year in a CTE class prepping for this type of competition. It elevates the instruction, it elevates the readiness and skill set of the students in a CTE program. So this year, our instructors from welding and woodshop went to assess the competition and kind of like, well, how would our kids perform if they were in this competition? What it allowed the instructors to do was to know what's expected and how best to prepare their students in their CTE programs. And then next year, we're looking at our students will enter the competition. Teaching and learning is a couple high school pictures. I try to make a habit of getting into the schools on a regular basis. I'll speak a little bit more to the teaching and learning that I got a chance to see when we talk about the goals of the school district. But it's just, it's a highlight to be able to visit the classrooms and see the teachers providing some instruction there. In the one picture, Mr. Hammond, and then in the other picture, seeing the students kind of engage with each other or on their own, practicing and working on the mastery of their science content. Highlights, some more highlights. So you see Staff of the Month, Heritage Health is recognizing staff for certain positive behaviors, and then they appear in the monthly Gazette. And Students of the Month, the staff and principals are highlighting students for specific positive behaviors, as you heard tonight, and they are recognized particularly at their school site. You can usually find that on the school website or Facebook page. Traits like the trustworthiness, perspective, work ethic, caring, integrity, responsibility. In terms of March 27th, that was a professional training day and a work day for teachers. Support staff were invited. And that's always a special opportunity and high leverage opportunity as a superintendent. You get to work with almost your entire school district team. So you get to share one common message from myself to the team. And the team members, while they have many teams at their different school sites, it's neat that they get to interact with other people on their team that they might not always get to interact and converse with. During that time, in that professional development training time, we got a chance to gain a deeper understanding as well as a collective understanding in terms of our strategic plan, which we're going to see a little bit later. Since they're going to be the ones in the trenches working with the kiddos on the priority work so that our kids improve and achieve the goals, as well as ultimately attaining our mission and vision statement, which we saw evidence of that this year with our seniors in their culminating senior project and presentation, but I'm going to speak to that again a little bit later. Another highlight is the Potlatch Community Sports Complex, and that is not the official name. And I just want to give a big shout out to the boosters, Potlatch, Celtic, St. Mary's High School. They have donated a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, and a lot of their own labor to get this field ready for our athletes. If you had a chance to see the field in the fall, we got to play a soccer game. And now they're trying, weather permitting, to get the field ready for spring sports. And even if we don't get a play on the field this year, it's looking good. It's really coming along nicely. And there are definitely other businesses who have donated time and money as well. It's coming along nicely. Yep, I can't help, you just got to keep highlighting the senior projects. And again, I'm going to speak more to it for a very good reason. Some calendar dates. We had a math curriculum meeting this week, and Principal Carson, our main facilitator, will speak to that later on the agenda. You see that? I think Hayburn already highlighted our spring. Is that Springo? So this Friday, down and have some community and camaraderie and support Hayburn. 29th will be our board development workshop, and you're going to see that again in the agenda later on tonight, and we'll select some other dates. And I'm sure Principal Carson will speak to it, but we have another math committee meeting at the end of the month. Other school district events. You've seen most of these. The policy procedures we're going to talk about a little bit later tonight on the agenda. Committee math committee update, you're gonna hear later on the agenda. I'll speak in this report about some facilities and safety projects. The legislative cycle has ended, so superintendents, officers, board members, business managers, we're gonna be attending some workshops to get a deeper understanding of what some of those new laws are and what they mean and look like for K-12 education. And then as we gain that understanding, we'll be back to kind of report out on that. School calendar input for the 25-26 school year, that's an agenda item later on in tonight's meeting. On this report, I'll give an update on where we're at with the construction of the CTE shop. And Assembly is that electronic board agenda we've been talking about for almost the duration of the year.
Can I have something on the CTE?
Yep.
Construction? Are you going to Potlatch with some students?
Yes.
Wednesday?
Yes. Yeah, so there's what's it called?
Job fair.
CTE job fair for kids being put on at Potlatch. And one of the areas is forestry, which is going to be one of our new CTE ways. So we have an opportunity to take a few teachers and a couple high school staff, including myself, maybe you.
Depends on, yeah.
Okay. We're gonna do a little field trip, and really it's just to, the kids that are attending have an opportunity. They're supposed to bring their resume. They're gonna meet with some different business people in the field of career tech and potentially make some connections for a job. As well as for the adults, we're getting an understanding of how career fairs are run, particularly adding these CTE programs, so that next year when we have ours, we just have a better understanding on how to run that career fair.
Who's all going? You? and-
There's about 8 high school seniors, the high school counselors, my understanding, and at least one of the CET teachers, at least one, not more.
That's the city of Potlatch?
Yeah. Cammy I was today.
It's at the Potlatch Transportation Department. Yeah, they've had several different career fairs happening with this added forestry component.
Ryer Becker and Blake Manley have put together a simulator trailer. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but ILC at the Intermountain Logging Conference, they were there and they had quite a few pictures of it. And it's pretty cool looking. They've got computer stations with joysticks, and then they've got seats and stuff that you can sit in there to try and get kids involved in running a piece of equipment. So
So is the
Are
job
we gonna
fair,
look at?
I'm sorry, is the job fair something like what we had last
Yeah,
year?
so it's
Okay.
exactly like that, but they've added some of
But they-
these CTE programs,
okay.
particularly forestry. So they've asked us, hey, can you come look at it? And then we'll start adding those pieces to our job fair next year.
Excellent.
Oh, so they're gonna look at bringing that trailer here?
yeah, it should be here next year, I think, is our rotation.
So we do it every other year or every 3 years?
Every other year.
Every other year?
Yeah, so we're putting on a job fair next year, yes. And the idea with auto mechanics being added in forestry, then that's the idea, is we would be able to have that simulator.
So hopefully we'll.
And some other,
Yeah, we should have the U of I trailer here, and then we'll try and get the trucking trailer here, simulator, so.
new student client manager server, you're good. We use Skyward, and we're about to switch to Cumulative. What can I say about that? Parents and students shouldn't see or notice much change. Cumulative is replacing Skyward, my understanding.
It's still Skyward, it's just a different platform. It just
Different
looks different.
Yeah. So we have some people in St. Mary's that are working on the transition with Cumulative and Skyward, and then we have staff being trained periodically throughout the rest of the school year. And again, parents and students shouldn't hardly notice the change, just letting you know it's some of the happenings in the school district. Again, the building safety projects, I thought maybe you had a question. So two slides there, just keeping that at the forefront. At our board workshop, what we'll start doing is putting a timeline, which most of these projects we want to complete in the summer. And then in the board workshop, we'll start being able to put price tags to it. And it'll tie into the procurement policies that we're bringing forward tonight. We'll talk about that at the agenda item. What else was I gonna say on the building projects? We threw in district office that was not on there last time. So a neighbor, concerned patron, just said our district office was looking a little shabby. So we did throw it on there to do some landscaping, some paint, and get some new doors. And also just acknowledging that, not making excuses, just acknowledging we have a facilities team right now of 3. That's down to 2 with an injury, and we're looking to hire another one, so that brings it back up to 3. Plus, this is the time when we start looking for summer work, and substitute facility and maintenance people are always posted. What was I gonna say to that? And we look to prioritize our projects to the schools first and foremost, because that's where the kids are. However, that's been added. A great idea from the concerned patron was also, what about a work day? So between maintenance and our district office staff, we are gonna do a little bit more cleanup and landscaping around the district office on April 19th. From a Friday afternoon, from maybe around 1 to 5 o'clock-ish, all are welcome. CTE shop, and where we're at with that. So, we have 2 possible locations still. The survey's been completed, the geo testing of both sites have been completed. So now what is happening is our architect is constructing a little bit of a floor plan, basically focused on the foundation. Since really the cost of the building from the ground up will be about the same programming, the same engineering. So they're focusing, the floor plan is focusing on the 2 different foundational pieces of this building, if you will. And once we get that, he's working on that right now, then the board will be able to analyze the costs and make a decision, which would mean the procurement process ideally would start in June or July. Our IS, the Idaho Student Career Readiness Grant, that's the grant we received to be able to construct this new shop. Allison Denon, she is visiting different sites, and so she's going to be around April 16th to look at our 2 possible locations. And that's an opportunity to put a little plug in that they have 1 more round of grants. There's 1 more meeting, 1 more council meeting. So should we need more money to build a shop based on our 2 site locations, and we have evidence of what and why, that's a chance to potentially go ask for a little bit more than the 1.3 million.
The big deal is the foundation on that.
Yeah.
Right. Looking at where it was, the
Right.
foundation would have been extensive, right?
Yeah,
So we
both.
check both sides.
Both,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Seems like the foundation it may be an added cost above our original
Right.
assessment.
Okay.
This is like, we're gonna switch gears. It's intentional. Switching gears. These are currently the 4 strategic goals and superintendent goals. We've seen this many a time with our performance targets for this school year. Basically to increase by 10% in each of those areas, except for when you look at absenteeism, we want to see that drop. What else was I going to speak to there? See what my next slide is. So that's just a reference. Now, I recently brought the hard data points and we looked at the mid-year data points for each of those goals. So sometimes it's nice to share qualitative data, right? And that's being in the classroom, like I showed that picture of just in real time, watching the good instruction. Those are some of those key instructional components. And then witnessing and seeing evidence of student learning towards the learning objective for the day. What else do I want to say about that? So those are some key components that the school district is looking at as an instructional model, if you will. And that, the picture I showed you, you saw the one teacher kind of in front of the class providing some direct instruction, you know, a new concept for the day based on the learning objective. And that other slide with the science classroom, you know, that would be the next step after the direct instruction. So now the kids are in guided practice. So they're kind of interacting with each other, they're interacting with themselves, the teacher's walking around and supporting them as they practice or need feedback or want additional instruction as they understand and start to master that learning objective for the day. And it's just, the qualitative data is just a balance in between those hard data points to still be able to witness good instruction and get evidence in real time of the student learning and mastery. And sometimes you see that first before you see their performance and their added understanding show up in the state test results. Questions on that? Makes perfect sense. Switching gears again. So just to continue to look at the strategic plan. It's a draft version. You're gonna look to vote on it in June along with the budget. Since what we're listing as our priorities in the plan will be some of the decision making and how we allocate our money. So those are the same four goals. Right, those big bolder goals stay the same. We've added based on input from community, residents, parents, staff, and students, social studies and science next year, when we say achievement for all. These are the same goals. You know, what will happen next fall after we look at our end of the year data is adding the performance targets. That's what changes. So based on how our students perform, we'll be adding our performance targets. Action steps. These are some of the key action steps. Not that there's not more happening, but based on all the input, these are some of the key action steps as an entire district we're looking to commit to. And through these action steps, then we see growth and achievement for these four goals. In the fall, then the schools will design their own strategic plan. These are kind of the parameters, and then they get even more specific. And then that way each school is contributing to the overall four goals of the district. There's the other action steps, the key action steps to achieve the goal 3 and 4. So where some of the changes are is the value statements and the mission and vision. So that's what I want to point out tonight. And you can see it in color, maybe, up here it's in color. So they're, from all the input, I guess it's synthesizing how many times we saw those character traits or how many times a version of that mission statement came forward through the input, then synthesizing and being able to write one mission and vision and trying to capture all that input without getting too bogged down. So you'll see in green, those are some of the added traits. Again, based on the number of visions and vision statements that had collaboration and confidence in there, as well as the number of people that wrote collaboration or confidence as a character trait they wanted to see in the vision. So this is an updated version of the mission and vision. And you heard it tonight with a few people, all students. So committed to quality education and collaboration by teaching skills, developing knowledge, fostering responsibility and confidence so that all students become productive citizens. And again, I'm going to speak to the senior projects and how that shined through.
Right.
How many of us went judge senior projects? I did.
I did not.
Yeah.
And my husband did too this year.
That was awesome.
You really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
Sat in the same classroom and they did 34 years ago.
These are some of the value statements, based on input. Looking to use as a school district when we're making decisions and when we're doing the work to support students so that they reach those goals we set and ultimately the vision and mission statement. The green highlighted is the traits or the values that we heard over and over from the input that we gathered. And 2 and 4 value statements are the ones that continue to resurface as the most important. That's why those are highlighted.
We have integrity.
Yeah, no, integrity.
Remember these from whenever we read this, right? Yeah, so that's good. Yep.
And respect for all the values. Civic responsibility and leadership.
Right.
Now, when you look at these, I mean, in working with the staff, it's like, there's a hard data point, it's really easy in academics, 43%. It's just easily understood, right? When you talk about the vision and mission, and when you talk about the value statements, it's more of a soft social science, if you will. So a lot of discussion will need to continue to happen throughout the year so that you're continuing to calibrate and define what does that really mean to look like. That way, then you can use and measure how well are we implementing these values with the work that we're doing with our students to see results. And so let's go through an example, right? A big one's going to be staff and students valuing constitutional freedoms, civic responsibility, and leadership. Right? That's quite a balance there, or checks and balances, if you will. So we'll go through some examples. All right, so we'll take the school setting, and we'll talk about different roles and situations where we're looking for civic responsibility and practicing civic responsibility while also exercising our freedoms. Student and a teacher in a classroom, right? They may use self-control or practice their civil responsibility and not yell out in the middle of class like, I don't like you, or I don't like the way you teach, or let me discipline you right now, right? They'll probably, ideally, they're using some civic responsibility based on that situation, and some self-control. And yet, later after school, in a meeting with the parent and the teacher and the principal and the student, then exercise those freedoms and talk about what do you need instructionally and what do you need behaviorally. Make sense?
I think so.
Striking that balance. Patron, right? So using self-control or civic responsibility at a board meeting, they're following the open law and the policy guidelines, yet still exercising constitutional freedoms. Committee member using civic responsibility and exercising their voice and concerns or freedoms through the committee meeting. Being a part of the decision-making, being a part of the concerns, being a part of the ideas, being part of the processes. And then outside of the committee member, having someone that represents the committee give a full report to the patrons and the board members, keep them informed. Board members and superintendent, practicing self-control and using civic responsibility during a board meeting, following open meeting laws. Can't respond to patron comment during that time. Yet exercising constitutional freedoms or First Amendment later outside of the meeting when we follow through our follow-up procedures. Those are some examples, not all. And continued conversations on what does that mean and look like, so we can use those values when we're working with our students to support them as they grow and achieve those 4 goals that we've outlined for them, and ultimately, attain the mission and vision statement that we've outlined for them. So now if I go back to the seniors and their culminating project and presentations that I was so fortunate to see on Friday, which is absolutely amazing, right? Their presentation showed exactly what can happen when the school and community, when the school and the families, when the students and the staff work together, and when we all work hard. I mean, that's exactly what we witnessed. Students demonstrated knowledge. They shared a skill. They presented confidently. And then they also shared their plans after high school, that they're going to enter the military, go into the workforce, pursue higher education, pursue a career. All plans and examples of them being responsible, successful, productive citizens. I mean, I just can't say enough of what can happen when we work hard and when we get to work as a team, and what great human beings that we're about to graduate.
The ultimate study's pretty hard.
End of report.
Yeah.
They did work hard, and people, parents, students, staff worked hard.
And you can just see how much, thought came out of their process of learning and developing those presentations. Some of them surprised the kids, and yes, they really were passionate about this and they were going for it full steam, or whoa, that was interesting and all, but I'm no, going in a different direction. And it was really beneficial for them.
I mean, and the seniors they're just sampling of what we're wanting and looking for out of our pre-K-12 kids.
All right, moving on to Idaho School Board Association, Idaho Education Law Seminar, April 22nd, 23rd. I am not going to make that, so. Then the Leadership Institute's May 23rd, Coeur d'Alene. I'm assuming the Midtown Center.
If each of you received postcards,
Yeah.
so I was thinking, okay, and Beth, you already
Yeah,
said you're available.
Is that for the leadership one?
Yeah. Yeah,
We'll
I'll
have
make it
mine
to
to
that.
one.
I'll make it to that one.
Where are we at with that
I
one?
already responded to that, didn't I? Just like,
So anybody else wanting to attend?
Moving on to K, math curriculum update. Ms. Carson. Just as you sit down.
And
No,
then
it's okay. Go ahead.
we'll be able to display some of the documents up there.
Please do.
And I've handed them out too.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me speak on this. I've been eager to update you guys on our process, all the progress our team has made regarding the math adoption process. I thought it might be helpful to provide a little bit of history as to how we arrived in the place that we're at. So first, I just wanted to say that we created our committee. We consist of admin, teachers, board members, and parents, where parents do represent more than 50% of our membership. First, we mined interest. We asked all teachers who was interested, and then we also sent out a district survey to all parents. And if you were a parent who showed any level of interest, you were invited to join. Okay, so in the end, we ended up with 19 members. Next, we needed a way to define what a quality curriculum was, so we created our evaluation tool. We used the state's example as a model. We looked around other districts around us for some inspiration, but ultimately we curated our own. It defines what a quality curriculum is, but it also preserves and honors the values of the St. Mary's community. We put that evaluation tool in front of our committee. They had the chance to add or subtract to the tool. And that is where first these concerns of SEL or CRT or sensitive material first arose. I'm going to go more into that a little bit later. Next, we started with a state list of recommended curriculums. Okay, that list was brought forth and vetted by a much larger committee at the state level. Teachers, admin, parents, all vetted into this list, and they provide districts with this example. So off that list, our team chose 5 to explore. And then the committee was also given the opportunity to bring some curriculums forward that weren't on the list, and that happened. One of our committee members, actually Philip, wanted to explore Singapore. So we added Singapore to the list. So all in all, we put 6 on the docket to explore. Originally, K-8 selected 2 to pilot. The high school originally selected 1. So piloting a curriculum just means that teachers with fidelity utilize and implement the materials in their classroom for a set amount of time. And for us, it was 6 weeks. We met halfway through the first pilot and allowed teachers to share out their preliminary rankings. It was at that time we began fine-tuning our system for defining and flagging material that might constitute as CRT, SEL, or sensitive topics to our St. Mary's community. After consulting Courtney Green, a math coach for the state of Idaho, we learned that SEL and CRT may be reviewed in a lot of different curriculums. She mentioned the difficulty we would face in finding one that was completely free. So we addressed it and we got aggressive with it. We defined what these ideas were and then began documenting any examples that we were finding in the pilot. Teachers gave specific examples in the text. Parents were encouraged to follow along the pilot and note examples they found as well. These examples were compiled on an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll use that as a tool for teachers. If that respective curriculum is adopted, they will have a running list of examples that they need to be aware of. Can we show that Excel spreadsheet for each of the curriculums?
It's a Word document.
So this tool you'll see in just a moment. Envision has the most examples.
This one?
Well, that's just my table that was presented at the board. Do you have the Excel?
Yep.
Perfect, let's show that one. So this tool, you might have to zoom out and show everybody that, and play around with the tabs to show that every grade level is represented, and any examples that we found were noted. So this tool will help teachers omit the material during instruction, allowing us still to adopt a high-quality curriculum defined by our evaluation tool, yet mitigate that exposure to those potential sensitive topics. Seth, did you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to read this sensitively. That's all right. I'm trying to really.
I mean, you
Oh,
have a smaller.
I have a smaller version of this.
These two. Yes, so what Tana's provided for you, the colored copies, that is just a table that I presented
There you
to
go.
These
That-
colored
the committee at our
more
meeting.
helpful to you.
Yes.
They show the 3 different
It's the same.
curriculums and then laid out that way. That's gonna be more helpful for you.
The difference between the two, Seth, is one is stagnant, right? It's just what we found, whereas the Excel spreadsheet will be an ongoing list. We will
Right.
continue to add to that.
Right, okay, perfect.
So what you're looking at is just something I presented to the
Sure.
committee to show how we were noting it. Okay? I want to bring you up to date with the most current progress our team has made. The high school team piloted HMH, and their rankings and feedback were high enough to select this curriculum as their choice to recommend to the board. We won't make that recommendation until in later months in order to give you guys enough time to reach out for clarification, chat with either Dr. Inch and I about the curriculums. The middle school team finished their first pilot with Envision and began a pilot with Singapore. Feedback halfway through included that Singapore has an underdeveloped 6-8 curriculum just for that grade level and was lacking so much that the middle school team did decide to end the Singapore pilot and began piloting the HMH curriculum. So they're currently in their second pilot. The K-5 team is halfway through their Singapore pilot and they were able to share out their preliminary rankings. We will convene at the end of their pilot. April 30th is our next meeting, 3:30 to 5:30. Any questions about where we're at or how we got here?
April what?
30th.
Yeah.
I heard 8. I was like,
I
that's
heard
today.
something. and I-
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, it's on the notes right there, but
Yeah.
sorry.
Awesome. So I know we're definitely finding definitions of SEO. Was there any suggestions to what we consider as radical SEO?
At this point, we haven't defined what radical would be.
Okay. So
something
like
we can know.
gender awareness suggestions, right, is what I'm looking for specifically, like when we're encouraging us to, something that's non-traditional family specific.
And we did
And I
note
wasn't
that,
sure if that
we did
was-
note that in that third column, the topic sensitive to our community, anything gender would be flagged in that category. So while it didn't fit the CRT or SEL definition, it's still additionally something we want to flag and make our teachers aware of so that we can mitigate that exposure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Additionally, last thing, there is a timeline and it's really colorful.
I had it up here.
Oh, awesome. Just to kind of track the progress of what we've been doing each month, the progress that we've made, the steps that we have taken so far. So again, please reach out for any clarification. Please attend, come chat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to L, student enrollment, open enrollment, student discipline.
Give me a second. L, not L.
Cal,
Sorry.
L.
Zoom back.
Open enrollment.
We'll come back to this.
So if you look at our enrollment, as well as open enrollment on that, you'll see that our enrollment has stabilized, which is nice. There was a little bit of a dip like last meeting, if you remember, at the middle school level, I'm sorry, at the high school level. At this point, it's pretty much stabilized. And then open enrollment is just keeping track of, based on our full capacity at each school, how many openings we have should somebody want to transfer in and apply.
Why do you think we lost so many at the high school?
Back in April, let me recall my. Oh yeah, February. Several. Most of them had switched to an online for different reasons. Some was like the social anxiety of being in a big public school setting. Some was, I want to accelerate my learning and graduate sooner than what the high school could offer at that time. And some was, I'm falling so far behind, trying to do some recovery and keep up with it. Those are some of the reasons. So then, and then just, you know.
Yes. Hey, Josh,
You know,
could you mute yourself, please? We're getting background noise in here. Sounds like sometimes
Sorry,
like
guy.
you're chewing on something or.
I wish I could mute, but
I drank some water and choked.
we know.
We heard.
Yeah, if you could mute yourself until you're ready
There you
to
go,
talk,
there
that
you
would be
go.
great. Thank you.
Then I'll start talking, we won't hear him. All the rules. So then, back to Mr. Soton, the counselor and, principal and I, are kind of brainstorming some ideas, especially with IDLA, the digital learning platform. Some ideas on how if kids need to, if they want to accelerate, if they need to recover classes while they're in a current schedule, how we could keep them enrolled at the high school and give them those opportunities. So we're looking at how we could do that for next year.
For some of my schools, it's 1-1 to excel. I don't know that being specific, but I've heard that from at least 5 of them. Like, hey, we wanted to graduate early. Someone wanted to hit the workforce early, so I don't know if that's a regular thing.
And you see on one of the action steps of the new strategic plan is to be able to offer a lot of those college ready, as well as the career tech, like dual enrollment classes, just for that reason.
Right. It was really cool part of that as well, seeing some of these seniors and how much they've actually gotten college credits. They didn't do it, which was cool, but some of them actually opted to get out. Finish out early in the workforce now. Like I said, I think 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, so we want to look to accommodate all of that. And then just really quick with the discipline, in this format right now, it's a little tricky to read, so what we're gonna work on is a couple things, getting into just one comprehensive table like that enrollment, so we can just look across at all the schools, including the school district, on how we're doing with infractions. So we're gonna move all these tables into a comprehensive table, as well as being able to look at discipline infractions in one school year, but also be able to compare it to a prior year, so we can track how well we're doing.
I like the breakdown of the different schools though.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, just like in the enrollment, you have the breakdown of the schools.
Right.
And then you can see the contribution.
It also
Correct.
compare data to
Correct.
previous.
Correct.
Okay.
So cross schools, district wide, from year to year. But what I will point out right now, to make some sense of the data is if I start in the back at the school district data.
Yeah.
And you look at the second page, which is this, discipline from the start of the year till now.
This is the entire district.
Yeah. On page 2.
This is-
Yeah, where there's 97
Yeah.
and then 38 and then 29. So that's what I'm gonna point out. So then you can look at each school and you can see how they contributed to our overall discipline right now. And noticing like bus citations was pretty high, 38. First cell phone violation was pretty high, 29. And I'm highlighting the 3 highest, right, infractions.
Right.
And then disrespect, 97. Now, again, that's kind of like the mission and vision and the value statements, like just continuing to define with staff and students,
What disrespect is.
what does that mean and look like? Yeah, so when we're writing that. But you'll notice, and then you can see how each school kind of contributed that overall. Those are the 3 highest areas. And then it's conversation with staff and principals, like, so in the other areas that have a low infraction rate, what's working to keep that low, like disruption, that we could continue and replicate in the other areas. But also, if you notice, what I thought was interesting, if you look at, there's a downward slope. So if you look at bus citations, after the first one, if you notice, there was a downward slope then. Very few people got a second or a third. So maybe that was working. Just a thought, but something to check
Did we
in.
implement the whistle?
Yeah, we did do the whistle, yeah.
Or the first and second cell phone offense, I see that.
Yeah, so
Maybe
again,
that's-
like, first violation, but then after that, you see a decline. So,
By 20.
Right.
20 different offenses.
so, potentially that citation worked and it curbed and corrected the behavior. Disrespect's a little tricky. Now you see disruptions down. So again, just having conversations with principals and staff. What are some of the successes in the other areas that we might want to try to continue to lower that? And that is some of our work with goal 3.
Have we seen the monthly disrespect having an impact on coming down throughout the year, or is it staying pretty much monthly the same?
Yeah, great question. So a couple things that happen when you're looking at data, you get some questions answered and it raises more
Raises
questions.
other questions.
Yeah, and that's something very specific that we would want schools to be looking at when they meet in collaboration, looking at academic and behavior on a monthly basis. So ideally, that's something they're looking at.
Because we get to see that in those like bus infractions or the cell phone infractions, we can see that improvement.
Right.
But yeah, we don't.
It was
get that.
harder to see that
Yeah,
without
right.
asking them.
Right.
And again, we're gonna continue to refine this so it becomes really meaningful data for us to look at. And then it, to correlate with some of those action steps we're taking for goal 3 to see good behavior. Good?
Okay, moving on to M, 2024-2025 school calendar input.
Oh, we got an M?
M,
All right. So, what's to say here? We're looking at preparing the calendar for the 25-26 school year. And that's approved in the May meeting? Is that approved in the May meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
24-25.
Yeah.
It has
So-
to be submitted to the state at the end of the month. So.
All right. So we're just giving you some input, ask questions, get some information, and then we would bring it back next month for approval. A lot of work was done on the calendar, I know, last year. So moving into the 23-24 school year, people did a lot of work to get it in a place that I think people like. And you can see from the feedback, so principals had conversations with staff to get some feedback, particularly around the start and end date. People like that, stay the same. Get a little bit of feedback about the first 3 days back to school. You start on a Monday, 26th, or you start on a Tuesday. It's kind of like give or take. Either way, they have 3 work days before kids return after Labor Day.
50% were other ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and so, other ideas, yeah, so then you can see that, so what were some of the other ideas? And what that was, is this year was a leap year.
Right.
So we need to find one more teacher workday.
Right.
So this is some of their ideas. So do you add it into that first week of August? You got 3, do you add the 4th right there?
Right.
That's a possibility.
Right.
And some people mention that, just make it a 4-week work week in August before the start of school. Another one's called a floating workday, meaning teachers have a little bit of choice there. So some people will go to summer conferences. So could they count that as their workday? And if they don't go to summer conference, then they would attach it to this first week when principals are in the building. Or the first 2 weeks when principals are in the building. Then we asked about the elementary and middle school parent guardian school conferences. Most people liked those, and the 2 changes that they asked for, one's already in effect. So can we start conferences on the evening of Thursday?
Right.
To accommodate
I
families,
saw that this year, yeah.
and then still have your Friday? Yes. That's already in play. The other one was April conferences seemed a little difficult, and like you just come back after spring break, you go 4 days and you have conferences. Yes, I hear that point, and what you also have to do is, it's kind of the way the calendar fell out, so you have to count your 170 plus days that kids are in school, and then you try to have each quarter be as close to even as possible, like 43 days, 43 days, 43 days. And when you do that, that's kind of how the spring conference time rolls out. The other one for e-learning days, we asked about that for the high school. You can see most people like that. And the one change or idea was, could we just continue to make them more meaningful? Which would be kind of like now going back out and asking, what does that mean to look like when we say more meaningful?
Seems like pretty low input. That was 4 responses for that.
Oh, so what we had was each principal
Oh,
gathered
gotcha.
collectively with their staff.
I've seen some of them were like 2 responses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good question
Okay.
on that. And the part of that, March 22nd, when they had the teacher work day. And support that, that's where they got that information, or one of their Monday early release days. Then we wanted to start to get a pulse on what a 4-day student school week would look like, so we just asked. I know we wouldn't start that before 2025 or even 2026.
Sure. Right.
But we started to get a little bit of thoughts, raised great questions, a lot of pros and cons, all the additional preparation and information and input that we would still need to get.
Glad to
Very
see that
thoughtful,
it's
very
being-
thoughtful.
it's providing conversations, and at least it can provide us more ammunition to research, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Great thoughtful ideas, input, I would say.
All right, good. Move on to N 24-25 proposed budget workshop date.
I'll let, chief business manager jump in as well if you'd like. So we have 3, I'll just let you jump in from the start.
Usually we'll have 2 or 3 budget workshops prior to the June budget hearing. We propose to have the first one, and we've tried to target it Mondays. That seems to be the date that people are used to having board meetings or committee or workshops or whatever. So we were hoping to start the first one on the 29th. of April. That'll be a fairly long one, hour and a half, and that sets the stage for budget. That'll talk about enrollment, talk about how the state funds, and average daily attendance, how the state funds it. It'll be in the same format we've done before, so Beth and Jody will have seen that. Talk about the different revenues we receive from the state, local, what makes up our budget, the tax, the supplemental levy, and then pose any questions you guys come up with that we would prepare the next one. So then the second budget workshop, which we were targeting possibly May 6th, is just to continue on and put some numbers to those values, to those calculations. We set the stage in the first one, and then we start putting numbers, projecting for the following year based upon what legislation put forth for state revenues.
Those are Mondays.
Both Mondays.
What was
If that works for you.
What was the date? on
April
it?
29th would be the first one. April
May-
29th
May
is Monday, April 29th, and then May 6th. We would continue on with any discussion at the May 13th, which is our regular board meeting.
Okay.
And then if we need another one, just because the board really needs to set what they would like the budget to be prior to the 31st.
Right.
Because by law, we have to post that budget so many days prior to our budget hearing on June 10th.
So the board meeting and the budget hearing would be combined?
The budget hearing will be
Or we-
June 10th.
No, I meant that 13th.
The 13th, we'll have it on the agenda and we
Earlier?
will go on with discussions. And
Because
if
the
we
first
can,
two are workshops.
first two are workshops,
Okay.
absolutely, and that's all we'll probably be talking about those
So we
nights.
can learn about this more.
And then do we know
Absolutely.
what time those are gonna be?
No, that would be up to you guys.
May
Well,
6th, I've
last
got,
year we had
Go
from
later.
like 4 to 5, but
yeah, May 6th, I've got another meeting at 6, so.
And that could be a shorter one. I think the first one's usually the longest because they're setting the stage, but we can definitely be, and it's flexibility. We were just throwing these dates out.
You're pretty familiar, so
Yeah.
maybe we just
Okay.
carry it on with, and you have to leave.
We get started, you could leave or whatever, yeah, so we could play that by ear.
so what's the earliest we could start?
Typically, we've started at 5:30 or after per request and patrons.
My request as well. Yeah. Whatever you guys.
It's up to
Well,
the
it's up
board.
to you.
and
That works for me,
workshop.
just because it's after
Yeah.
work, allows patrons to show up and be involved, at least those that can be. So I like to say, fine, if we go later than that and it carries into 8 or 9 o'clock, it's gonna kill me.
Josh.
Josh,
Josh, what do you feel like, buddy?
Oh, don't forget to unmute if you're speaking.
unmute Josh.
Do you have him muted? You have him muted?
No, I
No,
don't.
No, I'm good at this fat finger. Hey, the
Takes a minute.
I'm okay with however we need to go. And biggest thing is, what's the date that we're proposing?
The deadline is the 31st to turn in, so the first two workshops, forgive me for speaking.
April 29th?
Yep.
And May 6th.
At 5:30.
You get that?
Yeah,
Write it down.
I'll be gone for the, yeah, we're fine. Just the 4:30, 5 o'clock normal time is fine.
Well, I think we're.
I think we're shooting for 5:30, Josh.
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
And then on the 13th, that's just part of.
Regular
the
board meeting.
We're not meeting early before.
No,
It'll just be
that
discussion.
would just be part of the
Just
board
could
meeting.
be in there.
Continuated part of
And
that.
then if we need another meeting, just to wrap it up, we were looking at the 21st of May if needed. But we would
If we
just
need.
play that by ear.
Well, and if we have people missing here and there, we might want that.
We're also negotiating teachers and.
The negotiations
So
will be
sometime,
thrown in
yeah, I
there
don't know.
somewhere, so
One meeting
that's
a
in
month?
addition to,
We gotta meet,
April and May is busy.
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, and I know that's a separate committee. This is obviously just as
What do we
important.
need again?
April 15th.
15.
Monday.
Tax day.
You got that?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what's April 15th?
Yeah.
That, nothing.
Negotiations.
Oh, gosh, I'm
Negotiations.
like, wait a minute.
No. Not you guys.
That's good.
Just one meeting a month.
A week,
3
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
anything for you?
Please, yeah.
Okay, moving on to, update policy procedure.
Agenda item.
Oh,
Let me
Kevin?
No. Nothing in it.
Okay.
Nothing there.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Here, I have this for you. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
2 slides. Give a little bit of a stop and that. So I'll walk you through it and then you can ask questions. You can move ahead, instruction. Right now we have the advisory committee. I'll jump to goals, right? The idea is to pare down the 490 current policies that we have. Make a little more manageable and doable to follow. There's 125 that are required. The idea behind the process is to amend the policy so that they're legal and work for St. Mary's, and looking for a process that is thorough and extensive, while also making progress, meaning we meet our goal of updating, amending, and adopting policy that's legal and works for St. Mary's. So the advisory committee right now is 4 parents, 2 staff, 1 rotating staff member, depending on the expertise. This can evolve, that we've talked about. Like, this was just one idea to try out, and if it needs to evolve, it can evolve. Legal counsel, yes. To make some progress, we're gonna need some legal counsel. Like, for example, we wouldn't have known that those 125 policies were the ones required. So you have legal counsel, which is ISBA, to say, hey, these are the 125 you need to look at. Then from there, the idea is we get that legal content in those 125 required policies. Let's see, what else? I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. I guess I'll repeat myself a little bit. And then from there, the committee has an opportunity to look at that legal content and customize the policy so it fits for St. Mary's. I do want to share the ISBA mission, which most of you probably already know, is to advocate for Idaho students in public education with leadership and service local governing school boards. Their motto is to champion education since 1952. All right, the sequence. The way the process would work was that we would look at those 125 first, which would be roughly, we want to take 10 to 15 to the board every month. So you're talking, that would take about the first year, just to go through the 125 that are required. After that, clearly St. Mary's has some optional policies that we want to look at and be like, do we still want these policies, or can we start to get rid of some? So that's kind of step 2 and 3. So it becomes a little bit more manageable. Move to the second page. Process.
I got a question. How did we get to have 125 up for reevaluation right now?
There's 125 that are required, meaning federal or state law has changed. So those are the ones.
This last year?
No. Just those. We haven't updated some policies back to, it's been a lot of years. So the idea is to look at those first and see if they're okay the way they're at, or if we need to make any changes so that it matches law. So not required, meaning school districts need those in policy, like there's 125 you need. So they're just saying federal or state laws passed, so look at those first to see that those policies match. So for example, the procurement one doesn't match. And the procurement policy that we're gonna look at today. And then if it matches, it could be fine. We could come forward and amend it as is and adopt it as is. And then it just reads 2023.
So you're saying 128 different legislative laws have changed. That's requiring us to review policies that have to do with those laws, is what you're saying.
Or school districts are required to have the policy on those 125 areas or statutes.
Okay.
It's a mix.
Because some of them will just say reviewed, and then it'll be reviewed, it's been reviewed by you, and then it'll have a date. So there's no change. There's probably a lot of them, there's no change, but you
haven't been reviewed in a while.
You've been
It's okay,
it's still okay, we carry on. So it's basically, you're gonna be looking at you're gonna review or amend, review and adopt, review and amend every policy.
It's similar, obviously, to the judicial system and reviewing laws that are continuously brought to them as their job.
And some won't be changed, but that's your review process.
I think it'd be something like, the district office has to have a flagpole. Okay, so the last time we reviewed that was and I'm just saying hypothetically, 2018. So you go down there, 2018 was the last time it was revised. So now you go through there, okay, we have a flagpole, it's erected. We revised it at 2024.
Reviewed it.
So you just reviewed it, added a new
Still
date.
okay, it's still okay, we move on.
Yeah.
So we don't know that without looking.
Right.
Good questions.
So eyes on each one.
So let's see, that's the order. Format process, okay. So I think I shared, legal would send, example policies that has match our policies, that has the current legal content. Then the committee, ideally we get in a routine each month that we're looking at 10 to 15, based on that legal content. Like we just said, might be review, no changes are needed, or it might be we need to update some content to match statute and make sure it's still customized and working for St. Mary's. Then the committee and superintendent brings those 10 to 15 forward to the board. Ideally, we get in a rotation where it's every month, and that'll still take us a little bit over 2 years. There are 2 policies per set. There are 2 readings. The recommendation from ISBA, from other school districts, is that there is at least 2 readings for each set of policies that we're going to bring forward. There are some exceptions that warrant a 1 reading. We're going to talk about those. And then in terms of patrons' involvement, access to the drafts with the agenda, when the agenda is posted online, potentially until Assembly comes up. We could use a Google folder, just like the agenda will be in a Google folder, and then the draft policies could be in Google folder. When Assembly works, people would see the agenda in Assembly, and then people would be able to see the drafts in Assembly. People won't have, access the night of the board meeting could also have hard print. So people could have access online when the agenda is posted. People could have access in hard print the night of, like tonight at 5:30. That was a suggestion we implemented. Gives people an hour to read them for the first reading before the board meeting.
That's not a policy we're deciding on. It's just a reading.
It's the first reading.
Okay, it's the first reading. Okay.
Yep. And the drafts would be online there where the agenda is. That's something we could also look to accommodate. So work in progress is another way to look at it.
Okay.
So this is all in preparation of the first board meeting and the first reading. Then there's 1 month from reading to reading, right? Board meeting to board meeting. To give the same opportunity to patrons as the committee had. Comment, listen, review, study, reference statute, look at other school districts, and even makes edit suggestions.
Okay.
Board members get the opportunity as well. And because you're taking 10 to 15, you'll probably get access to the drafts about the same time to start studying prior to the board meeting, listen to comments, have your own discussion, listen to concerns, listen to other possible edit or suggestions, be able to reference statute, look at other school districts. And then in the second reading, potentially approve for amendment and adoption.
Move on to P, review of board policies, policy number 701.03, student.
Sorry.
Board policy 701.03, student and adult meal charges.
Oh, we'll come back to the exceptions, I forgot that part. I'll come back to it, it'll come up in the board policy review. Where are we at?
70103.
There we are.
Student adult meal charges.
Okay. So here's the 3 that are potentially coming for a first read and possible approval is, 'cause there's gonna be circumstances that warrant one reading. So I'll talk through these, and then you can table them, or we can move forward. All right, so warranted example number 1, for the student adult meal charges. These are a few changes that have already been taking place with practice. So now we're getting close to the end of the school year, so it seemed timely to put the practices in place with policy, since we're about to arrive at the end of the school year. One, in terms of how they notice if there is a charge, they notice more than once a month, right? And they notice, well, you can see right there, in the form of a letter, telephone call, or email.
This is the emergency charge. This is that emergency charge. When they're referred.
No, just any charge. If a
Okay.
kiddo gets charged lunch, and then there's we feed all kids. And then
Oh, I
if there's a bill, there's just different ways we notice
Okay.
that kids, it's time to pay a bill. It was changed from an adult to employee, because really the policy only governs employees, so we changed adult to employee. The food service charges not being allowed, like not being able to charge a lunch 2 weeks before the end of the regular school year, we don't do that. We let kids charge all the way to the last day of school. So that's why we took that out. And we're, again, the timeliness of it that warranted looking at this tonight was, we're getting close to the end of the year.
Okay.
And then the back page was, again, changing adult to employee, since the policy can really only govern employees. And again, it's up near the end of the year, so it talks about them paying their final bill at the end of the year, or would they like us just to deduct it from their June paycheck?
Because it's only referencing employee specific charges.
So that's the timeliness that might warrant a policy for one reading.
Okay.
Again, your decision on that one. So the 2 procurement,
Yeah, pretty simple.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
some of them are gonna be straightforward, some of them are gonna be if circumstances arose or actually changed. So let's look at the 2 procurement ones together. That's how they're meant to be looked at.
Okay. And I read statute.
So the content that was struck out in 801.01 is all content in 803.02. That's why. It's still there. It's still statute for sure. Just the rules for semi-formal bidding and formal bidding, you'll find in 803.02. It was an overlap. It's like
That's whenever you're reading the laws, and the laws
They were
require 2
redundant.
separate.
They were redundant.
I was like, whenever I read those gun laws, and they were both saying the
which
same
is
thing.
why sometimes we might have too many policies.
So, right, so 80,
So we'll,
803.02 is actually laid out more of a step-by-step
Where is it shown?
process.
Public procurement.
so the first paragraph, you should find all that content in 803.02 in this semi-bidding or formal bidding.
Skips 0 to 50 and goes 0 to 75.
Okay, so that's the second part. So in addition to content, explaining semi-formal bidding, like written notices, picking the lowest bid, looking for quality contractors, that should be in this table on these 2 pages. Okay, the other part that has changed is the amount required for semi-bidding and formal bidding. So it went from 50,000 to 75, so the amount changed in statute at the start of the year. And the amount for formal bidding changed from 100 to 150. So amounts have changed. Content's still there, it's just in 803.02. And the amounts required for semi-formal and formal has changed by statute. So this policy now matches statute.
statutes are not.
Statutes,
And all the statutes are included.
is it demanding that we don't have that bidding process? Is it in the statute, does it demand? I like, I haven't read this.
That we have to
thoroughly.
have a semi-formal bidding process where you allow 3 days for written notice, yes. That you accept the lowest bid, yes.
That's all demanded.
That's all,
Contract
that's all,
purchase or
in-
expenditures to procure construct for less than 50,000
you publish it 2 weeks in advance,
provided or.
you make the bid specifications, you can reject. And we can bring it back next time for a second reading, that's no problem.
Okay.
The point to get it started is statutes changed. We tried to put all the same content into one, so that it reads cleaner, and the timeliness of it. We're about to tackle all those building projects for summer, and this is the time we need to start to go out for contracts and bidding. So we wanted to have our policy match statute. There's one other thing we changed. In 803.01, under quotes. Yeah, first page of 803.01. First page there at the bottom, quotes is the heading. This is not in statute. I think it was written for St. Mary's. This is a piece of St. Mary's where we customize policy. And so there's still a courtesy and we still want to do good business. So we changed the amount to kind of match the new amount for semi-formal and formal bidding. So still, if there's a project that's $50,000 to 75, because 75 is a lot of money. So we still want to let you all know, we're gonna do our due diligence and still go out and try to find 3 bids. Quotes. Sorry, quotes, thank you.
Give me an example of where we wouldn't for the under 50,000, just so I can understand that. Give me an example of where, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to understand this further. Where we wouldn't put out for bid for under $50,000.
Any project that comes forward that's under 50,000, like we need 4 doors at, Hayburn.
We
So
wouldn't
get
put out
quote.
for formal bid. We just get quotes. So what's the formal bid process of putting out in public?
Right here.
Right.
So semi-formal at 75 to 150 explains the semi-formal bidding process in the middle column of 803.02. And for formal bidding, if it's over 150, it describes what we have to do.
So, hey, Seth, just for an example, we had to install additional power boxes at our fire cache. And because we were estimating what it was gonna cost, we got quotes, 3 vendors, and then just went with the lowest vendor, but we can verify quality. So this might be slightly different, but yeah, it's just good business, I guess.
So we can still review quality of, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But I don't think, we just kind of have to be careful there.
It's, an example is when we're gonna go out for bid again with the shop. So that was a huge, construction. That bid came forward, right? Right? We heard from 3.
Right.
Low bids. However, we weren't sure about the quality of the contractor in the bid, so we ended up denying all of them. We're going back out for bid.
Right.
Because that's gonna be a big one.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So,
understand the bigger ones. I
so,
don't
yeah,
understand the
so the-
little ones. 50 grand's a lot of money. You know what I mean?
well, so no formal bidding or semi-bidding has to go out if it's under 75,000.
Right.
However, and we can change this, with quotes, we're trying to do good business.
Right.
And be courteous in saying, well, we adjusted it, saying from 50,000 up, we're gonna go get 3, hear from 3 vendors.
Right.
And you have like Joe Gilmore, who's cross-referencing contractors.
Right,
Now, we
I
can
respect
keep it at 25 to 75. The process takes longer before we can tackle some of those projects.
Right. But we can't
So
stop
it's-
demanding inside this legislature. That's
No.
what I'm-
So
So we can
it's striking that balance between being really thorough and extensive in our processes and yet still being able to advance and progress in the work that we want to accomplish. Joe, you want to add anything?
No, it's the process, even on the lower things, I try to get 3 bids. Some of the smaller projects, I'll work with somebody I've been working with pretty regularly. But yeah, we get up around that, 20, 30,000, we're gonna get multiple bids, or not bids, quotes.
Or quotes.
Just so you can compare where we're at.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding the process of formal bidding to the quotes that we're getting and not letting like all of us review. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that part. I'm just trying, I'm being thorough by asking. That's all.
Clarify the quote.
Josh is gonna come back.
Please.
Well, just to simplify, so quote is pretty informal, right? So a contractor comes out to do a power box, and they're like, "Hey, this is going to cost me $10,000."
Right.
If that's in line with knowledge and experience, and it sounds about right, you could double check by calling another contractor, getting another quote. It's like, okay, that's in the ballpark. This guy's comparable, and based on experience, and good job. Then there's the authority is given to a designee, say Dr. Wrench, to make the determination, or Joe, to say, yep, we're gonna go ahead and go forward with this because it's a good business practice.
Right.
Now, in the context of like, I wanna repave a parking lot, I might grab a quote first, just to get an idea of what it's gonna cost, so I have no idea. Quote comes back, it's $250,000 to pave an acre and a half. Well, now that just kicked it up into a formal bidding process where we have to receive actual bids for the board essentially to make a determination on what the best business practice is going to be for the district.
I understand.
And if you look at on the first page of 803.02, in that middle column, where it says under 75,000, no bidding requirements.
Right,
if you
I
look
didn't
at
understand. I totally get that.
Yeah, okay.
I
And then if you
didn't
look at
understand
semi-
what we're talking about by bidding. I thought it was like quote is bid to me.
Oh,
Bidding
yeah, I
bids.
know.
That's why I was like, what are we discussing? Because I don't understand the formality difference. Like, are we still getting multiple quotes? Are we still reviewing those quotes? Are they still being decided on? Or are we talking about, we're just gonna go with that guy because my buddy? You know what I mean? That's where I was more or less trying to, obviously I'm
I
gonna.
think the easiest way to look at it, a quote can be accepted or denied at a much lower level than a formal bid or even a informal bid.
Mr. Gilmore, you want to add to that?
No, it's just, these smaller amounts, we get, I usually get 3 quotes anyway, unless it's like, say, smaller projects, if it's pretty much materials, labor, it's pretty plain to pick the number there and know where you're coming from. But just like the store replacements at the Hayburn, the first bid came back like, wow, is it really that much? So okay, we get another bid, and yeah, it's really that much. They were a few $100s apart.
I totally understand it.
And then you
Yeah, I
can
didn't
research the
understand it at first,
contractor
like,
company.
I totally get where we're
So
deciding
what's
what's
happened over the last few years, or this year anyway, the thresholds for formal bids and even the multiple bids or multiple quotes has raised, so we kind of bumped it up a little bit. That doesn't mean that we're doing anything any different but the lower amount.
Right.
I still get 3 quotes when possible.
Okay.
And again.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
This is a fair amount to digest, so we want to bring it back to the second.
Boards and request to administration, board development. You got anything? Here, seeing them. Move on to the action items. But with that being said, I'm gonna take a short recess and go to the bathroom.
We're taking a short recess, Josh.
All right, thank you.
All right, good,
We're back on.
good. Ready, Josh? Okay. All right, need to review and consider motion to declare the need to approve the application for emergency provisional hire for 7 to 12 music category James Whitman.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yes, review and consider motion to offer the certified personnel contracts for the 2024-2025 school year.
Let me speak to those. So it's gonna speak to item S, T, and U about the contracts. So we're looking at extended contracts, for somebody like a Jen Miller who works more days than a teacher. That's what extended means. Administrative contracts for the 4 principals, and then S, you got the certified personnel contracts, so that's the teachers. So this time, this is a little bit earlier than usual, but 2 things. We want to prepare the contracts, so once you approve them, then we prepare the contract, within 1 week of board approval, and hand deliver those contracts to the building principals, who will then deliver and distribute to the appropriate staff member. Staff gets to acknowledge that they've received their contract, the signature and a date, and then they get 10 days to decide if they want to sign that contract and return it to the district office. What else did I want to say about that? The contract will reflect their current 2023-24 salary placement. However, once the contract is updated, then we recognize the salary schedule, any movement on the salary schedule once negotiations, that contract is done. And then that will be reflected in their 24-25 contract. That makes sense? Okay. The idea is twofold. One, once we get the contract signed and we know the positions that have been filled, then it lets the district have time to advertise and go out for positions when we want to fully staff school buildings. And the other is, it's nice, staff are performing and working for the benefit of our kiddos. So it's nice to get out the contracts early and recognize them as quality people that we want to see return. So it's twofold for the reason to do it a little bit earlier. There we go.
And just FYI, for the chairman, you gotta sign all the contracts.
Okay.
And we don't allow any stamps, you gotta sign them.
I like how you guys are staring at me.
Just saying,
If it ever gets there.
when you get that stack of contracts like that, it's like,
Compare that first signature with the last one.
Get a stamp.
Nope.
no.
I'm
can't-
expecting a
can't use
present.
them.
I'm expecting a present for Christmas.
So,
Josh needs one as well.
so we need a motion for that.
Yeah. So motion.
I second.
Okay, get a motion in a second. Any further discussion? You get that, Ms. Wicks?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. T, review and consider motion to offer the administrative contracts for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. U, review and consider motion to offer the extended contracts to the, did I just say that?
Yes.
It's
You
for the
Extended.
For the, excuse me, offer extended contracts for the 2024-2025 school year. Sorry,
Yeah, there's 3 different ones.
okay.
So moved.
second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say, by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. V, review and consider motion to approve the use of the St. Mary's High School football equipment in summer camp.
So moved.
Okay.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye? Opposed? Motion carries. W, review and consider motion to approve the application for the cooperative program with Kootenai High School for the 2024-2025, 25-26 football season.
Want a little background on that one? All right.
Yeah, is there enough kids to change us up a bracket or anything?
No. So it won't change our brackets or the league we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year, I think we had 2 kids from Kootenai join our football team about mid-season. And so this coming year, the idea is they don't have enough to have a team. So they want to join our football program. Both, I think it's a great idea, good cooperation, good business. And so that would be 8 to 10 players, I think, from Kootenai that would join our team. They've already signed this agreement, so they're just waiting on us to sign, and then they can get rolling. And then the idea behind starting it now, as they start to prepare for our football program, is the Kootenai players will join our team from the beginning and be a part of all the planning and preparation and activities.
Are they providing all their own transportation?
Well, usually they would travel with us because they'll be
So
part of our football team.
they're gonna get to here. We
Correct.
don't have to send a bus
Correct.
for them.
Correct.
I like that.
Got a motion, need a motion in a second.
Also motion.
Second.
We got a motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. X, review and consider motion to approve the board policy 701.03, student employment and meal charges.
That was the first one with the tap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's-
So
Second.
Got a motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Pardon?
Motion
Michelle
carries.
saying aye.
You just said aye. Y, review and consider motion to approve board policy 80301, purchasing.
With the next 2, I mean, my recommendation would be that we table them so we have more time to digest all the content. The one has been rolled into 803.02, so 2 readings, everybody has time to digest and study. And in addition to that, there was some additional statute that we want to combine and make sure we list on each policy.
I actually want to speak on it.
Recommendation is to go back for a second reading.
So
And
will
make
the
those
additional statute be blue? So we know exactly where.
Yes. Changes are, yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
Yes.
all right.
I
I
definitely
make
think
a
that's,
motion that we table 803.01
Yeah.
and 803.02 to the next meeting.
We need 2 individual motions.
Oh, 2 individual,
I'm
okay.
gonna make
all
a
right.
second on that different motion. I
Wait.
wanna definitely Go to for.
Let me rewrite.
Okay,
I gotta restart it.
okay,
I made a mistake.
sure.
I make a motion that policy number 803.01 be tabled till next month for further evaluation.
I second that. I definitely want to add in this, is that, well, I'll second that, so then we can discuss it in a second, please, yeah.
So we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to add, this is a good time for any and all input for the next reading, especially because this is something we definitely, also, it's not our money, right? It's your guys' money, it's all of our money, right? That we discuss this, bring it forward, what you propose and what we definitely are going to discuss for the next meeting as well. I think this is a great time to implement the new policy process. Okay, so we'll move forward with that for sure. So I think that's what we got.
Yeah, there's time to
Second reading.
study,
Right.
there's time to make reference, there's time to look at other policy, there's time to make recommendations for edits, all before the second
Awesome.
reading.
Awesome.
There's good clarification here too.
Any more discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Z, review and consider motion to approve board policy 80302, policy procurement and goods of services.
I'm moving to table that as well.
That's the same one.
Policy number 803.02, I recommend that we table it to the next meeting and do again.
We already had a motion. We need a second.
So go second.
Seth. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. AA, review and consider motion to approve job descriptions. Paraprofessional music, PE, literacy, and student support.
Yeah.
Student education, paraprofessional 1 and 2, transportation mechanic substitute.
So I'll start with the the transportation mechanic substitute. Now that we have substitutes that are mechanics, we added a job description. It's a good thing.
So are these each separate?
So
No, they're
now,
all
now,
in one bullet point.
yeah. So now the paraprofessional and the special ed paraprofessional, those go together. And I have Jim Miller here as my backup. So, the paraprofessional one, you'll notice we removed the title special ed paraprofessional because we created a separate job description. And then there was one task on the paraprofessional music PE literacy, task number 11, that was specific to the special ed paraprofessional, so we removed that. Those are the two changes on that job description. With me? All right. Now we move to paraprofessional special ed, para 1 and para 2. And I don't want to undervalue Ms. Miller, so please speak or echo my information right here. How did this come about? Paris came forward and said, we want to get together and collaborate and meet with our coordinator, all para 1s and para 2s, special ed para 1 and para 2. And we just want to review the job description, and we wanted to have it match and be relevant to the work we're currently doing right now in the school buildings. So they initiated it. The coordinator of special ed responded. They got together and updated what you're looking at, their para 1 and para 2 special ed job descriptions.
And with special education teachers as well. They were
Thank
part
you.
of our committee.
Thank you. Great team effort. And that's why they're here before you for approval.
Make a motion?
Second?
Second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BB, review and consider motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Bye, Josh.